We shall be seeing today the last section of the fourth canto of Book 3. Book 3, the vision and the boon of the Divine Mother received by Ashwapati. Ashwapati has received the boon from her and he is now coming back to the earth. The description of his coming back is given in 92.8. Across the light of fast receding plains that fled from him as from a falling star, compelled to fill his human house in time, his soul drew back into the speed and noise of the vast business of created things. His soul drew back into the speed and noise of the vast business of created things. His soul drew back into the speed and noise of the vast business of created things. The business of created things. Our attention will be focused essentially on this line, this vast business of created things. What is the vast business of created things with which Ashwapati will be occupied? He will be occupied after receiving the boon from the Divine Mother. He has come back to the earth and he has still to attain the vast business of created things. Not the small petty life of the human, but something vast in the created things. Actually, Ashwapati was in a long odyssey in search of finding a solution to the vexed problem of mortality of this mortal creation. His birth itself was in that context. There was the great invocation from the soul of the earth and the divine incarnate himself and took charge of this anxiety of this mortal creation. The divine incarnated himself as Ashwapati. Ashwapati comes here in response to the invocation from the soul of the earth. There was the Vedic rite, the Vedic chanting, the hymn invoking his descent, his coming, and he obliges. He comes here, he gathers in the depths of his soul the desire of this world, the world's desire for its fulfillment, for getting the promised realized in this creation. The world's desire is big to climb by itself to the Supreme, but Ashwapati comes here and carries the world's desire to the Supreme. He does yoga tapasya, gives it the strength of his yogic power and the illumination and the necessary content to reach it, to take it, to offer it to the Supreme Himself. Because desire reaches the Supreme. It reaches the Supreme in His creative, executive aspect, the Supreme Divine Mother herself. And the worst desire is that the Supreme Goddess, that omniscient Goddess, she herself must take here the mortal birth and solve the world's problem. Ashwapati comes here, does the yoga tapasya for that. He prepares the necessary ground for her mortal birth. He prepares the yoga bhumi for her activity, for her action, for her dynamic play in his mortal creation. In that process, he also establishes in the house of the transcendent, a new and marvelous creation. It is that new and marvelous creation, based on the law of perfection that must come down here upon the earth. If that perfection, that law of perfection has to operate here, then it can operate here only in the truth dynamism of the divine Shakti. Therefore, it becomes kind of necessary, compulsorily, obligatorily, that things do happen in that way. Ashwapati's prayer to her compels her mortal birth. A worse desire compelled her mortal birth. It is in response to that she obliges to come here. Ashwapati makes a prayer to her, offers his supplication to her, and insists that she must send a form of her on earth to take care of the problem of mortality of this earth and take the evolution further. That it steps into the world of light and bliss and joy and happiness and power, into the luminosities of truth and beauty and love and harmony. She accepts his prayer. She condescends to take the mortal birth. She condescends to pass the mortal. She condescends to pass to the portals of the birth. That is the time. She says, yes, one shall descend. That is the promise. Not only that she will descend, she will, by coming down here, by coming down here, will change in her will the fate of this creation itself. The promise is given, the boon is granted, and Ashwapati is now happy with that. She goes back to her realm of beauty and wonder and marvel into the unknowable. She disappears into the unknowable. Ashwapati is now on his way back to the earth. The meeting is over between Ashwapati and the omniscient goddess. The meeting is over. The minutes of the meeting are drafted and finalized. The minutes have been drafted and passed. The operative clause is the divine goddess will send a living form of hers to the mortal world. Fate shall be changed in her coming, changed by an unchanging film. This will happen in death's tremendous hour. Death's tremendous hour is already fixed. The tremendous hour of death is when death will see himself transformed into his true self. Death's tremendous hour will see the divine incarnate himself making a strategic sacrifice and fixing the divine power in immortal creation. In that tremendous hour, in that death hour, things will start happening. That is the main text of the meeting between Ashwapati and the omniscient goddess. But in the execution of it, all this text, there had to enter many other factors. There had to enter in the human aspects, human process, as well as human instrumentation, as things had to happen in the human world, in the mortal world. Things had to happen in the mortal world. So the mortal process, the humanity's process, the instrumentation of man and of earth had to be adapted for fulfilling the divine promise that has been given to Ashwapati. In fact, it is in that sense that Ashwapati is now occupied with the business of created things. In that human process, which will make it contextual, make it relevant, true and substantial, is functioning participative and meaningful for the human advancement of the spirit world path. This birth of hers, of the divine goddess, of the omniscient goddess, will happen. This birth of her has to happen only through the available process of nature. Yes, she has to take mortal birth. How is that going to happen? That will happen only through the available process of nature. The process as is operational at present only through it and not through any other occult mechanism, not by a magical wand waving, but through the process of nature it has to happen. If at all there is any occult mechanism, that occult mechanism will not be of any success, will not be any avail in the mortal creation, because things have to go through the process of mortality, to the process of nature as it exists here. It is in that context Ashwapati has to deal with the material nature and carry things forward. It is not going to be a virgin conception. The divine goddess's birth here is not going to be a virgin conception. In fact, there is really nothing like virgin conception in the mortal world. If the divine has taken the mortal birth, it has taken birth by adapting the processes available in the mortal world and not the occult virgin conception which can operate here. In fact, if it were by virgin conception, then it can also be vulnerable to other factors and can get nullified as well. It has to be to the standard process of sex and reproduction. That is the single way for it to happen. If Savitri has to take the mortal birth, it has to be to the process of sex and reproduction. That is the single way for it to happen, and there is no other way. It is also the mystery of birth, of the soul taking a physical body. There is needed for the incarnation a human intermediary. The divine incarnate comes as an avatar, but he comes as an avatar through a human intermediary. By adopting the process of nature, he does not shun them, because unless he experiences the process of mortality, how can he solve the problems of mortality? Yogi or no yogi, Ashwapati must resort to it, to the process of nature. He has to father a child. He will have to get back to the business of created things. Things existing as they exist now, the art and craft and technique of the things as are there worked out by evolutionary wisdom. It may be defective, it may be flawed, full of problems, but there is the enduring quality in it. May be defective, it may be flawed, full of problems, but there is enduring quality in it. It assures stability, the desired continuity, the steadiness that another leap can be made. This continuity, this stability cannot be assured by the occult process, by the virgin conception also. In fact, this is a marvel of creation. The struggling nature herself has brought about the perpetuation of life through sex in the midst of the all-pervasive death is a fabulous innovation in the material creation. That also means that sex is one more step taking one closer to death. That immediately poses a problem to our way of thinking and understanding things occult, things spiritual, things beyond our ken. They pose a problem to us when we had to hold, when we have no hold of knowledge of deeper things, things truer and occult and spiritual. They pose a problem to us. If sex is tabooed in spiritual life, sex is tabooed in spiritual life by all disciplines through the ages. In fact, prescribed, will then Ashwapati resort to sex means, will he resort to sex? Will then Ashwapati will resort to sex? I'm sorry again. If sex is tabooed in spiritual life, it is tabooed in every discipline. Through the ages, it is a necessary condition in the spiritual quest, in the spiritual occupation, in the spiritual discipline. In fact, it is prescribed, sex act is prescribed. If so, will Ashwapati's resort to sex mean his spiritual downfall? Yet there is an absolute necessity of it if the divine boon is to materialize. He was granted that one shall descend. She will come as his daughter. How can that happen unless he engages himself in the sex act? Ashwapati's plea to her was, incarnate the white passion of thy foes, mission to earth some living form of thee. 90.37. Incarnate the white passion of thy force, mission to earth, some living form of the mission to earth, some living form. Incarnate upon earth. Did Ashwapati anticipate such a situation by making such a prayer that she should incarnate, now she should mission to earth? Did he anticipate that he will have to engage himself in a sex act, a necessary sex act? Did he anticipate such a situation at all? Incarnation cannot be without the recognition of the human process, without passing through it, without the sex act coming into play. The undeniable fact is Savitri, the divine goddess of the epic Savitri, is the incarnation of the divine goddess herself, the omniscient goddess herself, and her birth has to be through a sex act. It cannot be virgin conception, it has to be through a sex act. She has to pass through the portals of the birth, that is the death. There is no escape from it, absolutely no escape from it, from the sex act in which Ashwapati has to engage. So the first puzzle, first dilemma is, the dilemma is a yogi getting engaged in a necessary sex act. Should he, again the prescribed rule, should he? Apart from this, there is yet one more dilemma. If we go by what the latest biological sciences tell about sex and reproduction, which is there for the perpetuation of the species. In the case of Ashwapati, vis-a-vis the bone had received from the Divine Mother, the issue of this act is, of the sex act is, there is the specificity of a baby girl being born. Baby girl and not a baby boy. Baby girl and not a baby boy. There is a specificity of the birth of a baby girl in a sex act. Does science guarantee that a sex act will necessarily produce a baby girl only and not a baby boy?